Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting. And without further ado, I'll make the announcement in accordance with Openness of Local Police Regulations 2014. This meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed, or communicated on other media platforms. The recording for this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and speak clearly into the microphone available at all times. In mind that mobile phone should be turned off on silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. Okay. Move on to the agenda. Go to item 1. Apologies for absence, please.
Apologies for absence of previously on Councillor Jeffrey Coleman, Councillor Willie Coleman, Councillor Chalmers.
Thank you. Item 2, appointment of any substitutes.
None previously, Chair.
And item 3, any declarations of interest. No declaration of interest. I'll do the item 4 minutes of the previous meeting. We're very happy for those to be signed. Yes, thank you. Okay, I'll sign those. Bear with me in the book. Before we go on to item 5, just to note that item 10 on your agenda, which is draft audit annual report 2021 and 21-22, we deferred because the reports are not ready. And they will come in January. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Item 5, we've got an action list. There we go. On the previous meeting, are there any action lists? No. Thank you. Petitions of deputations. There are none. Thank you. Let's go to agenda item 7, which is briefly, company papers. It's a work plan with various subjects on the left-hand side of issues, and the person who's going to report will be author of those reports, and when it will be launched for any future meetings. It's a useful document. It's telling us what we're looking at or what the future looks like for a plan, but equally, if any member has something else that they want to share with us, or feel that there is any item or issue that they'd like to raise that's within the audit remit, you can share it with us, and that if it's approved, can go on that list. Tracy, yes.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, just to recognise that there will be one item added to the January meeting, which is item 10 that won't be considered today, will be deferred to the next meeting.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the agenda item 10 will be added to the work plan. Thank you. Any questions on the work plan? Any comments? I have to work. Pretty Joshy, I do apologise. You're there in spirit and on the team, so nice to see you. Thank you for attending the this evening, and my apologies for not recognising you in that corner there.
Not at all.
Yeah, thank you. Bear in mind, please ask questions as we go along and get sure our colleague here will make sure that you're involved within this group. Okay, thank you. Item 8. Excuse me. This is a report by Tony. Is he with us? Is that Tracy?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the report is pretty much set out, so I'm not going to repeat the contents of the covering report, but essentially the document sets out the formal communications between the external auditors, Grant Thornton, and those charged with governance in terms of the committee. And it also sets out our answers to some specific questions that the auditors have asked of Oby Winston Borough Council management. What I will say is the committee will recall seeing the version of this document for 2020-21 back in June, and thank you for your comments at the meeting on that evening, and we did take those on board, and hopefully you will look at this evening's answers and note that there are more comprehensive answers throughout the document, and I'll hand over to Paul in case you wanted to say anything around that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure there's much to add really. Like Tracy said, this is part of our audit planning and it's part of our formal communication. As part of our audit planning, we ask management to answer quite a long series of questions. And then just as part of the check, we bring that to you as those charged with governance, just to make sure that their answers are in line with your understanding of the council. And it's your opportunity to ask questions about any of the answers, or if you don't think anything's quite right, to ask management or inquire about challenge management why that's their answer. So I wasn't proposing to go through every answer in detail. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'm sure Tracy's happy to answer any questions you have on management.
Yeah, sure.
I suggest that for the benefit of members, go page by page and see any questions on page X so that we don't miss anything. So if I can formally go through to bear with me. Page 15, the big 15. Any questions on general inquiries or management? Any comments? Okay, going to 16. Again, questions of management responses.
Page 16, Chair.
Councillor Belcher.
Reply from Anthony Collins. This building I'm thinking about, it was in a poor state of repair. And I'm going back now, was it 15 years, maybe longer than that? And it was, management decided they were going to board it up. It's a public meeting, so I've got to be careful what I say. The ownership was in dispute at the time. The gentleman was abroad. It was part of a divorce settlement going back donkey's years. And we understood at the time that when this building was demolished, we put a charge on it, so the council got its money back. Mm-hmm. I seem to remember the council got its money back from the developer about 10 years ago.
All right.
So I was surprised to see this here now. But we didn't demolish the building. We merely boarded it up.
How can you...
Yes, go on.
Sorry, Chair. How are you identifying which building it is?
Let's look.
That information.
It's the only building I know that we've had any dealings with.
Okay.
And that's something that it's a building I don't know about. The building I'm talking about was in Long Street.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd need to get some more information.
Perhaps we could make that a bit of an action plan and clarification.
Sure. So you want to understand
what the building is, where it was.
Yeah,
To
okay.
me, it says a building, but it could be anywhere.
Okay, we'll get that
Yeah,
clarified.
yeah.
Get a report back on that. At the bottom of that page, it also talks about those with asthma or where there are ongoing investigation cases being worked on. I'm looking for those asterisks.
Fine, isn't it?
Page 16 at the bottom.
Next to Anthony Collins,
It's these.
Constance Cannon.
And I thought, oh, is there any more? Bearing in mind the Anthony Collins one, that's now going to be an ongoing clarification of what building that is. I know what building is referring to. Any more questions on 16 before we go to 17? All right, pretty, okay up there?
Yeah.
Pretty Joshi, Councillor Joshi? You okay?
On mute.
I'm on mute. You're all right, okay. Okay, 17, 18. Okay, 19 for the questions. Councillor David Oil, please.
Chair. Yeah, it's just in relation to question 3. Are you aware of any instances of actual or suspected fraud? And you've got that you were aware of 12 cases and that's been passed to the legal team. What processes have we been put into place from both our side and the reason for the question? What processes are in place to ensure that those 12 cases become 0 cases moving forwards? Because it sounds like that they are in respect to double accounting or something that ilk.
So the fraud cases that are identified there are rare in terms of the work that we do year to year, because these relate to the COVID business grants throughout the COVID period, and like all local authorities, we have a really short timescale for issuing the grants, and actually some of the prepayment checks that were carried out, we adhered to all of those principles in terms of prepayment checks. And unfortunately, as is the case for all local authorities, there were still cases that we have since identified to be fraudulent that got through those checks and balances. So we're not unusual to any other local authority in that regard. Those cases, I'd need to do some benchmarking, but having experience of this in another authority, those cases don't stand out as having a proportionately large caseload of fraud work compared to others who have administered grants. In regard of what work have we done since we've identified those cases, I was chatting to Dave Gill earlier around that, the monitoring officer, and so far it's the legal team's view that there's insufficient evidence in accordance with the Code for Crown prosecutors to instigate legal proceedings to recover those monies. So internally we're just weighing up whether there's a realistic prospect of conviction or not, in the view that whilst we might suspect the applications were not right and were fraudulent, actually have we got the evidence to get it over the line in terms of the court of law. So we're still assessing that at the moment, but monitoring officer's initial view is that we don't have enough evidence to recover those monies. That's all I have at the moment by way of response to that.
Thanks, Tracy. There's a question there where when you look at the amount, which is for small authorities quite significant. Nationally, it runs into hundreds of billions, of course, if you look at the latest report. But equally, will we end up getting some sort of feedback as to the outcomes of those 12 cases? If it's negative, some success or whatever. But each time you're going through this is a cost implication to the authority.
Yeah.
But sometimes does the cost outweigh the risk of trying to get something that likely could be very little, but the cost of trying to do that is significant. But there is a balance, fine balance between the two, I accept that. But because of the amount of 61, you need to be quite rigorous as to try to ensure that it crosses the line from a prosecution point of view. Does that make sense?
Sure, and I'd be happy to provide some more information to the committee around the status of grants and recovery, a bit more of a status update, so I appreciate that's kind of on the hoof, but I have a complete picture to hand, so I'm happy to provide that outside of the meeting.
Thank you. That was 19. Sorry, 20. Any comments on 20? I made a little comment on here on 20 at question 4. The last sentence on the right hand side, at any time responding to this document, and I put review following assurance work, expect a full arrangements. Perhaps that's been a bit naive, but internal report is under review following assurance work. What's under review? In respect to the floor arrangements, is there any update from that? Or is it just a question of saying, well, this is what we're doing in reply to that question?
I believe that will be updated as part of the internal auditor's next report in January.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. There's no comment from Councillor Joshi yet. Is that okay?
No, all okay.
Well, thanks. Didn't want to miss you. We'll try.
No, I know. Thank you. Thank you.
21, page 21. Comments 22, any comments on 22? Page 23. Any comments? So I've, again, perhaps clarification for me on question 12. The answers, there's a missing, what has been the outcome of those arrangements so far this year? There's blank there. I'm sure that the answer to how does the audit committee exercise right, that's the answer at the top. But there's no answer on that second question. Can you see that? On page 23, question 12. How does, that's answered above. What has been the outcome of those arrangements so far this year?
I mean, we have had no instances of fraud to report, so yeah, apologies, that's probably an incomplete answer on that particular question.
Okay. You okay?
Yeah.
24, 25. Law and the impact of law and regulation. Any comments on that? 25. No. Page 26. No comments on that. Go on to page 27, that's just related parties, page 28. The comments on page 28. I've got any comments? Well put here, on the question 1, at the bottom, sorry, what controls over which the council have in place of identity accounts for disclosed related party transactions relationships? The answer is any new related parties, etc. Preparation of council's year-end account. Should there be, well, I've put there, should there be an interim report throughout the year? So, I might be a bit too ambitious. No. That probably, does it make sense now? Well,
I think there are things that have happened in the year. Obviously, you have your member declarations, and senior officers also do declarations during the year. I guess that could be included in the response. And then at the year end, there is a review by the finance team to identify what was disclosed last year. You go through your members' declarations, they go through officer declarations to identify any ones. That's the controls that are in place.
Another one I've got is question 3. When it talks about delegation or the authority list, which identifies officers' financial limits, on authority to approve expenditure, all I've put there. Can these limits, are they appropriate now? Do they delay decision making when something happens and you want to do something quite quickly, but financial limits prohibit it being done quickly and efficiently? In other words, the financial limits, etc., are they cast in stone or are they movable and can be?
So the financial procedure rules are set at the moment, and they're part of the council's constitution, and we'll be reviewing the financial procedure rules, but they are somewhat prohibitive, but they don't stop us from, taking work forward. And I certainly don't think we've got any issues in being agile and responding to the nature of the business as we need to. So, but I will be reviewing financial procedure rules, and they will be presented to PFD and council in due course.
Thank you very much.
Just before we move on, Chair, are there any management overrides on these controls? You've got your since Constitution, but can you use management overrides to go around the Constitution? If so, where is it reported?
No, there are only if there are management overrides, they're only insofar as there are existing delegations, and they will be set out within the Constitution, and there will be reporting arrangements around those.
Okay. Are you happy with that, Bill? All right with that? Chair, never happy. 29. That's just again, that's just related to concerns. So page 30. Quite an important document there.
Can I make a comment on that, Chair?
Yeah.
I don't think open weeks is any different to any other authority. I think we're in a better position than many to carry on for the future. A number of authorities now are claiming to be bankrupt this financial year. We're not in that situation. Some large authorities are really struggling with the forward plans and budget controls. Well, not too far from here, a county council from here is struggling very, very much on that regard. So I don't think we're any different to anybody else. Until the government actually gives us clear plans on a longer term, the budget year by year is not ideal. In fact, 2 years isn't ideal. 4 years would be better, so we can actually plan things for the future, so we know what's happening. So I hope that somebody will listen and actually get the government a longer term investment plan, so we know what we're doing for year on year. It's not like the LGA might like to push for us again.
Yes, that's quite important. I've discovered the impact of our medium-term financial plan, because all this is guesswork, isn't it? Everything here is an assumption that something's going to happen or we might get something. Am I right in assuming that? If you start planning next year after, but you don't know what your precepts are going to be for a start, so there's got to be some sort of guesswork to say we're going to get X from Y. But it's only for a year because it's been happening. Therefore, you can only have a short-term plan because you know it's only for a year. For a medium term, we need to know what year on year is going to be. Like any business, for example, there are obviously some assumptions that you have to make, but the assumptions are more accurate because you're in control of what what your income and expenditure is here. We're only technically in control of the expenditure, but the income, especially from a revenue support grant that it used to be, we don't know. No authority knows. So therefore, our predictions can only be the best guess, which is not really a very business way of trying to work with an authority where you're trying to provide the services that people want. Because we may not be able to do that because we're not getting the information that we need to 12 hours to forward plan properly and more accurately. Does that make sense?
I think we're probably going down the rabbit hole of local government funding reform and local government financial sustainability for the sector. But everything you said is certainly a good synopsis of what happens in the sector in terms of looking into the future and medium-term financial planning. We don't have great certainty over the funding position for next year, but we do have some statements made by the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities. We know that the council tax referendum position has been confirmed. That was confirmed in the autumn statement. We'll now look to the provisional settlement to confirm other funding streams. So we've got a deal of certainty for next year, but not total certainty.
Any comments, Paul?
I was just going to say, obviously, you go through your annual budget setting every year, which includes updating your medium-term financial strategy. So, at a point in time, you are saying, well, this is what it looks like in 5 years, over the next 5 years. If you move on in the next year, you go, well, this is what it's like. So, you kind of, as you're moving close to those years, you get more of an idea of what's going on. And obviously, as part of our work in the BFM, we look at your assumptions that are in the medium-term financial strategy. So, we're making sure that they're robust and reliable, and you're not coming up with something that says our growth in income is going to be 300% in year 2. So obviously that might be unrealistic, and we'll have to understand where you come up with that. So we look at, I think, for your medium term, you're looking to make assumptions based on knowledge that you had at the time and the best guess, like you said, at that point in time. But then obviously that gets refreshed every year as you go through your budget setting. There's more information comes along, or as you start making savings, or as council tax goes up, or pay assumptions change, and you kind of reflect that every year.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But one of the work I'm concerned about is our officers are doing a sterling job with the constraints that we've got. What's coming from central government, as I understand it, the cap is going to change. But the danger is for me is that we're going to be passing the cost again from central to local, but not the money for it, with the increasing, whatever it is, they call it now, revenue support grant for business rates. Therefore, your predictions are going to be somewhat saying what services we're going to perhaps look at and not do anymore, or something like that. That's the danger. And that puts us in, our officers in a really, really precarious situation. If we put it up, we don't put it up. If we don't put it up, but it's this onset of keep passing the cost from central to local, and then financial remuneration to offset it. That's about the side of it, isn't it, really? I feel that our hands are going to be tied slightly to be able to provide what we want to provide for our residents in the future. And that's sad. Anyway, I appreciate your comments, and we'll try and do our very best. Thank you.
Councillor Joshi.
Councillor Joshi, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Just a quick question on question 6 on page 33. It says, how does management identify the need for and apply specialised skills or knowledge related to accounting estimates? So the answer to that was review of the finance team's skills and assessing. So my question is, how do we know, or how do we go about finding an interim resource that we need to complete this? I mean, are we going down the agency route, or do we have people on hand who we may be able to hire in for these extra resource?
Thank you, Chair. So the response here is a bit of a catch-all, to be honest, Councillor Joshi. I guess the specialised skills or knowledge relating to accounting estimates, our biggest areas of accounting estimates where the team wouldn't be able to do it themselves relate to some really complex areas such as pensions so the pension deficit and also valuations, thank you. Property valuations. So for property valuations, clearly we haven't got that skill set in-house. We rely on a RICS qualified valuer, and for pensions we rely on an actuary who works for the Leicestershire Local Government Pension Scheme. There may be times in the future, and there may be things that happen that actually we haven't got the skills in-house. So another example that I've come across in the past in local government is around appeals provisions and bad debt provisions. Sometimes councils, you have turnover of staff, you haven't got people who have gone through that process before. So you'd look at what people's skill sets were and maybe lean on another local authority, for example, to garner some knowledge and some experience from elsewhere. So, sorry, there isn't really a kind of one size fits all. It's a bit of a blended answer there, but I think.
No, that's what I was sort of alluding to, whether we do call on our other authorities that we're meant to be sharing practices and people with, and before we go to look for, paid agency staff, I guess, do we discuss and do we develop a strategy to get this input from other councils? Because that's what we should be doing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll always try and do things in-house, but where we recognise that things are not quite as comprehensive, or if somebody's not been through that process before, we definitely do. We're building up some really strong relationships with the finance teams, and I'm also part of Leicestershire Treasurers Association, so I meet bi-monthly with all the other Section 151s from across Leicestershire, and we quite often have on the agenda pooling of resources and information sharing, knowledge sharing. So I'd say we're becoming very good at doing that. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joshi, for the question.
Thank you.
32, 33, 34. Councillor David.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's me being picky. It's just the question 11 states, why are management satisfied that their arrangements for the accounting estimates as detailed in Appendix 8 are reasonable? Yeah, the answer just states, yes, they are reasonable. There's no why answered in that question. They've just stated a fact. Do we know the reasons why we are happy with the accounting estimates as detailed?
I haven't got Appendix A either, so
I just noticed that was missing.
no, I'm afraid I can't answer that, and apologies, that is an incomplete answer.
I think these are answers to the questions you're asking. They are reasonable. It says there on that 11. Are you saying that's satisfactory? There's these other satisfactory answers to that question. Should we have more?
I think as it stands, this is obviously our planning, so obviously as part of our planning process, we look at your material estimates, which is what this is covering. So we go into those in detail, so we look at all the underlying assumptions. And I think when we come onto the audit plan, there is a section on estimates. So I can take you through what we deem to be the material estimates of the accounts. And I think from past work in prior year audits, we haven't got any issues with the approaches taken for those estimates.
Perhaps then that could be, perhaps we could have a better explanation in that column not criticism, but perhaps
No, no, no.
explanation with what you've just outlined, that would be helpful.
I think it would help if you had Appendix A, which goes into detail and kind of sets out what the actual material assets are and how they're calculated.
Well, that's that question, but
Yeah, I mean, I'd take that on board, Chair.
thank you. Any questions on, any more questions on 34? I think that brings us to an end of that one. I think that's quite robust and good questions there. Anything else before we move on to what that's I go back to the beginning, Chair, please. Yeah. That's
An interesting statement on page 11.
Page 11. Sorry, your question?
Well, it says here, sorry for your benefit, and should not be quoted in whole or in part. So, that being the case, we can't say outside this room any of the comments that are down here.
I think you can. I think that's also under the disclaimer that goes on all of our reports. So the management responses are effectively the council's responses. As part of this, you're agreeing that they are in line with your knowledge, so they can be quoted. So it's just a standard disclaimer that we've got on all
Oh,
of
no,
our
I'm
reports.
just being picky, I'm just pick that up, thought, oh,
Technically, there's your prior consent as well,
yes,
because that's recorded now.
yes. Right, thank you. Okay.
Right, so, sorry. We can move on to agenda item 9. Before I go any further, thank you for the reminder. Go back to the recommendations in item 8. Noted. That report, I'll move it from the chair. Seconded by Councillor Bolger. All in favour?
Yeah.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for reminding. Quite carried away there. Item 9, again, that's the that committee note and approve the audit plan. Again, we've seen this document before, but again, it might be useful to go through page by page so that we can have the opportunity to, if there's anything that's been missed in the past that you might want to ask a question on, then by all means we can do it here.
Apologies, Chair, if I may. You haven't seen this document before. You've seen a version of this document possibly for a prior year. This document, the audit plan, is the auditor's plan. Paul may well want to take you through the report and draw out some key features if that's okay.
The key features on here similar to what we've had before. So,
Yeah, I think, Chair, in relation to the audit plan, you've seen, I think it was only a few months ago that you saw the audit plan for 2021. As you pointed out, the significant risk are the same. They're considering the council doesn't, your operation, what you provide doesn't change year on year. You still have your BD, you still have your pension liability. The significant risks to the audit remain the same. So I'm happy if you want to go through page by page or.
members, we'd like to, if it's new, now it's new, perhaps it won't take long because it's quite a bit. I looked at past the others, it's usually some paragraphs of the same, but that doesn't matter. Because page 40, for example, my question is, it's about the recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic in order to recover the losses incurred by service closures. We note that the grant does not fully offset all losses incurred. Additional grants have also been provided. So, why haven't we received the full recovery of the losses?
I think, Chair, this is kind of what's happened. It's kind of like a covering what's happened during the year. So obviously, 21-22 was the first year that we were coming out of the pandemic, and during that time, you received a number of COVID grants. Obviously, for the income, you received a proportion of your lost income. you also received some one-off general COVID grants. So you didn't recover all your income, but also there was additional expenditure that you feel. So it's not saying that you should have recovered everything. It's just to make sure that it's had an impact on your finances, and that's what that's recognising as kind of like a general comment, is that it's been a tough time for the council.
Yeah, so basically, we've not been given the grants. The recovery is not covered all the expense, basically. Okay, let's just clarify that for future reference. Okay, 41. The value for money arrangements, that's coming in that's coming in January, isn't it?
Yes, Chair, there's actually a more detailed page, I can cover it there when we go through it, and I'll then I can talk about the annual auditor's report as well.
42. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No.
This item here, I just caught my eye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines up on the bottom of page 41.
Oh, right, okay.
Fee for the audit. Would you like to explain that a bit further, please? I'm a bit concerned. It's 57,000 there, and in the bracket it's got 111,000.
So the 111,000 is for the 2021 audit, which we're almost concluded on, and then 57,000 is for the 21-22, the year that this audit plan covers.
Is that allowed for in our budgeting process?
So if I can, Chair, we did discuss audit fees, I think at the last 2 audit committees that we've had, yeah. Grant Patterson has previously, the audit director who's previously been at this meeting, has talked to the committee about the reasons for those additional fees. Where we are in terms of that process is those fees are now being submitted to the public sector auditor appointments through the fee variation process. PSAA will get in touch with me to check where I am with those fees, and then we'll go through the process, and PSAA will make a judgment as to whether the additional fees tabled are, will go forward. In terms of our budget position, yes, it will be captured, it will cause a pressure for us on our general fund, it will be an overspend on our general fund revenue budget.
What I'm trying to make, Chair, is that the government knows all local authorities are struggling for finance at the moment, and to introduce these new measures at this time, it doesn't help local government to balance its books. An 150% increase in audit fees, something that nobody knew was coming, has come, and there's no getting away from it. There's no argument about it. It's just going to happen. I can't think of anywhere else where this sort of level is going to be imposed on you with no negotiation. I know Tracy said it's going to go through an independent, in brackets, process, but any business, if you get a 150% increase in audit costs, it's going to make you smile a bit.
I think that there's 2 issues there. The 2021 is under the old PSA framework contract, and as part of that, a scale fee was set, which was, I think, was around 32,000 when it was first set 5 years ago. Obviously, as part of that, there's been changes in the auditing requirements, so there have been additional things that have gone on top of that, which have been agreed by PSA. And I think when we bought the audit plan for 2021, we were predicting that the audit fee would be around £60,000 for that year. What's happened is there have been numerous delays and issues around PPE and audit, which is why it's gone up from 60,000 to 111,000. That's subject to PSA understanding why we're charging that much, and that process is ongoing. So that's one thing. The 150% price that you're referring to is for the contracts from 23-24.
Yes.
That's part of the next one. So as part of that, there was a competitive tendering process which you opted into. So that was your decision to go with whatever PSA did. There was a competitive tender, and the results of it is that the audit fees have gone up. I think across the sector, it was widely realised that 5 years ago, those audit fees were artificially low. And this year, as part of this product, they've tried to take into account all of the financial reporting and auditing standard changes, and that's resulted in higher fees.
I understand only 5 companies tendered for the work in the first place. And all the accountancy companies in the country, and 5 firms actually bid for it. And also, if we cast our mind back a number of years, the Audit Commission used to levy their fees upon us. It went to such an extent that in the end they were abolished. And they went back to the private sector to establish a more reasonable level of fees. I think if this continues in this vein, the government may well change its mind and go back to another central body and do away with the private companies. So I think they need to be careful how much they do put the fees up, because I think they might have the ground cut from under them in future years, as other companies have done.
Okay.
I was going to say, I remember the Audit Commission, probably because I used to work for the Audit Commission.
Yeah.
But I think what's happened since the Audit Commission was around is that the auditing standards have become formal. There was a lot more that we are required to do as part of the audit, and I think as part of that, CITFA have recognised that perhaps there is too much that's expected that we're required to do that actually the public sector is perhaps not as applicable as the commercial sector. So I think CITFA are acutely aware and want to do a review of the code guidance and then what the auditing standards and requirements are for local government.
Tracy.
I think also if I could just add a state of management comment around that is, you know, the world of audit for local government is around kind of 2 themes really, isn't it? It's about auditing the accounts, which is very similar to a FTSE 250 business, right, which is not the world that we operate in, but auditors spend an awful lot of time on auditing the accounts within that nature, and we need to pay for that, and that's the current status of regulation and accounting and audit regulations for local authorities. The other part is around the value for money audit, and you know that is the bit that looks at financial sustainability of the organisation. It looks at fiduciary duty to the taxpayer and clearly value for money. So again, we've seen some enhancement in reporting around that, and some enhancement in the audit process around that. And you know, we do have to pay for that as local government, and I know that brings challenges for a small authority like ourselves. What I will say is, looking back at the fees for 2021, Grant Patterson has spoken at this audit committee about the issues in terms of timeliness and the information supplied by the organisation to the auditors, and the delays that the auditors experienced as a result of that. That is why there was increased fees for 2021 audit. What you can see there in the report this evening is those fees have come back down for 21-22, and I think that shows that actually the auditors have not experienced those delays this year from our perspective, and I'm sure Paul will update you further as to whether or not he agrees with that statement. But what you can see is that we've not incurred any additional fees as a result of not being able to provide information and evidence as when the auditors need them. So we've remedied some of the issues that the auditors would have experienced this time last year.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Page 54, not now, but page 54, you have all the bite of the cherry.
Yes.
All right.
I'm waiting for that.
Okay, any question on 43, 44, 45, 46.
Chair, if I may, so page 46, this is, as we've alluded to with the accounting estimates, and this kind of sets out in in the first section what were 4 areas that we deem to be material estimates within the account. So, like Casey said, valuation of land buildings and council dwellings. So you employ an external valuer to provide those valuations. Obviously, they are complex. And in fact, they're one of the biggest, the land buildings and council dwellings are the 2 biggest figures in your accounts. So they're small changes in assumptions and things like that can make them move quite a big difference. As you'll see from the last audit committee where we presented our audit findings report for 2024, we identified areas in that valuation process, so it can be quite susceptible, and that's why we spend a lot of time auditing that. Depreciation, obviously, depreciation of land and buildings and property, plant and equipment. That's kind of a standard way of doing that, but obviously it's against your biggest figure, so it's a big figure again. Year-end provisions and accruals, so this is, again, Tracy's alluded to this, like your NNDR, bad debt provisional appeals provision, that's one of your biggest provisions, and in some councils they get expertise externally for that, so they use something called analyse local, and give a prediction where they think that will be and how that's built in. And then finally, valuation of defined benefit, pension fund liabilities, again, rely on the actuary fund, that's pension fund, to provide you with a report that sets out where that is. But again, that's full of assumptions, and small changes in the assumptions can have material changes to your liability.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, understandable. Sorry, any questions on 46? No, 47? 48? 49? 50? 51, 52, this value of money which is coming in a later date anyway. Is there any comments you want to make on that? No?
I can do them now, or I can do them at the end, where I talk about kind of where we are with item 10, that's obviously not, I can give an update on that, but this page kind of sets out, we've identified a risk to the BFM. It's not saying that it will materialise, but your medium-term financial sustainability, like most councils, there's a risk balance. We will do some specific work looking at how robust your planning is for the medium term.
Yeah. We'll get the full report in January anyway, so thank you.
Just on that.
Yeah, Councillor, maybe?
Is that in addition to what's already been identified as part of the audit plan, so then will have an impact on the fees?
No, so within that audit fee, there is part of that element is the BFM opinion, our work on the BFM. And so obviously it depends on how much work we end up doing. At some councils where there are significant risks or we identify significant weaknesses, that normally leads to additional fees because the amount of work we have to do to kind of get an understanding of that. But at the moment, we're just saying this is a risk, but as part of our normal process of the BFM, we will look at your medium-term financial plan, but we're just highlighting that there is a potential risk of a significant weakness in your arrangements.
Okay, we move on to 53 and now 54. I think it's, when we look, I think it's important to clarify, I think, when we talk about audit fees, again, the understanding from, I mentioned earlier on about centrally, passing the cost from central down to local. I think this is another example. When I talk to people out there, making assumptions that local authorities waste money, this, that, the other, I try to explain to them they don't. No local authority wastes money because of the external audits that you put and challenge us on. But the audit fees were centrally funded at one time, run by the government, and then we ended up with the auditors doing this evaluation. Now that money, that cost has now been given to local authorities to raise through the council tax directly, and I think it's important that people start to understand where the additional costs are coming from, not from local pressures, but from a central pressure where what's centrally funded now, it's not, it's gone down to local authorities to charge the local taxpayer to fund it. I will say this, it's no different to the police and crime panel which I sit on, which are going to be audited. The pension pot that used to be centrally funded, will pass down to local taxpayer. That resulted in a £10 increase in the council tax for the police and crime panel. And that was £10 per year to offset that that's been delegated to it. So I think it's important that people realise that more and more is being handed down to us, the cost of it, and down to local authorities, all local authorities. So therefore there's an impact, a big strain on the budgets that we're trying to deal with today. I share that with you because obviously people out there, unless we let them know and explain it to them, there's going to be that, all those comments, it's the local authorities wasting money, and it's not. That's something that we need to generate, that confidence in people to say we do look after their money, and we're challenged and scrutinised by a good self to ensure that we do that. Sorry about that. That's it. Any questions on 54? We've gone through that, the explanation that's been said. We're on to 55, unless there's any other questions. Bill, sorry?
Yes. I'm not being picky, but there's a typo in the text. Our team have no involvement in the preparation of the four motion imagine.
So it's in preparation of the working papers, or the claim, which is certified.
Yes, there's a wrong word in there. Yeah. Just prove I read all the papers, you know.
Well done, Bill. Thank you. Councillor Josh, are you okay up there? Yeah. 55. 56. Digital audit expert. I know the feeling. 57. No, okay, we've come to the end of the articles in item 9, therefore, as the recommendation is highlighted there, that the committee knows and approve the audit plan. So I'll move that from the chair. Second that, please. All those in favour? Yes, unanimous, thank you very much. Item 10, of course, has been deferred to January. Unless there's any other business. No other business.
Sorry, would you like to just give you an update on what the annual auditor's report is and details? So obviously, for 2021, a new PFM regime came in, so it's not the binary qualification under qualified. This is a far more detailed report that sets out the arrangements that are set out on the audit plan. So it's what we decided to do is, because of the delays in completing the audit for 2021. If we did VFM completion now, a lot of things have moved on because it's based on what the arrangements were in 2021. So obviously we've been through 21-22 and we're halfway through 3 quarters of the way, almost 3 quarters of the way through 22-23. So what we would be reporting on, we would then have to bring a 2021, which would kind of be overridden. So what we decided to do is do a combined report for the two. Obviously that's a lengthy document. We're not talking about a few pages, we're talking about 20 to 30 pages worth of information. And we've worked hard to try and get it to this audit committee, but unfortunately it's a detailed report. We've given it to management and Tracy's given some feedback, and we're just going through making those changes. But given that your next audit committee is about a month away, including Christmas, we thought it would be more prudent just to wait and deliver it, give it there when we're kind of ready, and hopefully we'll have the conclusion of the 21-22 financial statements for this whole audit finance reports will also go to that audit committee.
2021, no, 19,
2021 and 21-22 annual auditor's report, so it'll be a combined report, and then we will also bring the 21-22 audit finance report, because we're actually halfway through that audit at the moment, so we're far more further ahead for 21-22 than we were for 2021. So we're actually hoping to get that finished in January, which means we'll be almost back on track for the 22-23 audit, if that makes sense. We've been playing catch up the past 2 years with the audits.
I read somewhere that there is a deadline that you have to have the audit in by a certain time. Is that?
So the audit deadline for councils is 30th of November to give Irish audit reports. I think in a lot of cases, most audit firms are not going to hit that because of various issues. Again, one of the big ones is around valuers. But then once we've issued our audit report, then we have to report our annual auditor's report within 3 months of giving the opinion. So obviously we haven't actually given the 2021 opinion yet, because we were waiting for some information from the pension fund. And then what we'll be doing is we'll be giving that audit opinion in January, along with the annual auditor's report and hopefully evidence. So it's kind of, there's a 3-month deadline there because we haven't issued the 20.
There's a catch-up. Yeah, there's a catch-up. I understand that. Yeah. Okay. And we look forward to that. It's a lot of papers.
It's big read. Which is, I think, is partly why we decided not to bring it to this one. Because if we'd worked hard, we probably could have got it to you, but you would have probably either got it late yesterday or early today, which is not ideal for you to read and digest it. So we tried to grant a decision that it would be delayed until the next audit.
I'm very happy with that. That's okay. I think we look forward to that. Thank you very much, Paul. Okay. As I said, after the agenda, as I said, it's been till January. There'll be no other business. I can now call the meeting to a close. Thank you all. Thank you, Joshie, Councillor Joshie.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening, all of you. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much, everybody.
Take care.
Every year or every 5 years.
I'm going to say, how often does this trade actually take place? Because, I mean, when we took the stock on, it was all valued then, which is not many years ago. It's meaningless, isn't it, in actual terms? It's like when you sell a house, isn't it? Then what, I've got all the money from a house. Well, you try and buy the next one,